Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The separatist leaders of 4 Russian-controlled areas of Ukraine say they'll hold votes this week for the territories to become part of Russia as Moscow loses ground in the war it launched there. The 4 regions are Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia. The announcements of referendums starting Friday come after a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin said they were needed today. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev also said folding Luhansk and Donetsk in eastern Ukraine into Russia would make their redrawn frontiers irreversible and enable Moscow to use any means to defend them. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba responded on social media and called them sham referendums that would not change anything. He said Ukraine has every right to liberate its territories and will keep liberating them, whatever Russia has to say. Hurricane Fiona has battling the Turks and Caicos Islands as a Category 3 storm with winds up to 115 miles per hour. It's devastated the island of Puerto Rico. A curfew's been imposed and people are urged to flee flood-prone areas. The Hurricane Center says the storm is likely to strengthen further into a Category 4 hurricane as it approaches Bermuda by Friday. It's forecast to weaken before running into easternmost Canada by the weekend. World leaders are gathering at the United Nations General Assembly Hall in New York to meet in person for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is warning the world is in great peril. He said world leaders must tackle conflicts and climate catastrophes.
There is another battle we must end, our suicidal war against nature. The climate crisis is the defining issue of our time. And it must be the first priority of every government and multilateral organization. And yet, climate action is being put on the back burner, despite overwhelming public support around the world. Global greenhouse gas emissions need to be slashed by 45% by 2030 to have any hope of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. And yet emissions are going up at record levels, on course to a 14% increase this decade.
He also urged tackling increasing poverty, inequality, and divisions among major powers that have gotten worse since Russia invaded Ukraine. Meanwhile, the world's first public database on fossil fuel production, reserves, and emissions launched Monday, called the Global Registry of Fossil Fuels. It was developed by the group's Carbon Tracker and the Global Energy Monitor and contains data on over 50,000 oil, gas, and coal fields in 89 nations. It shows the world is on track to burn more fossil fuels than what's already been emitted. Rail workers will vote on a union contract that was negotiated late last week, averting a weekend strike. At issue is paid sick leave, which the industry has agreed to provide 1 day of. The contract also includes a provision to allow workers to take unpaid sick time without penalty. While railroad executives haggle over the one paid sick day for its workers, a new report finds rail carrier executives have spent billions of dollars in stock buybacks and dividend bumps this year. The report, titled Railroad Operators Bad for Workers, Good for Investors, is a collection of data compiled by the Groundwork Collaborative and shared with the publication Common Dreams. It finds a handful of major rail companies reported more than $10 billion in buybacks and dividends over the first 6 months of 2022. Nadia Ramlagan has more.
If they fail to ratify the new contract, more than 100,000 workers could still go on strike. But Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says the agreement addresses their major concerns.
Because of the way railroad workers are scheduled, it can be very difficult for them to get time off, even unpaid time off sometimes when they need it. That was a major issue at the table and one that was resolved.
I'm Nadia Ramlagan for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
The Hill publication reports Republican governors of Arizona, Texas, and Florida have sent upwards of 13,000 immigrants to Democratic states in recent months. Since April, Texas has bused about 8,000 migrants to Washington, D.C., 2,200 to New York, and 300 to Chicago. Arizona has bused more than 1,800 people to Washington, D.C. A Texas sheriff, meanwhile, says he's opened a criminal investigation into 2 flights of migrants sent to Martha's Vineyard by Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. Here's Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar.
What, if anything, did they sign? Did they even understand the document that was put in front of them if they signed something? Or was this strictly a predatory measure, somebody coming and preying upon people that are here minding their own business and are here legally, not bothering a soul, but somebody saw fit to come from another state, hunt them down, prey upon them, and then take advantage of their desperate situation?
And Queen Elizabeth II's body was laid to rest at Windsor Castle Monday. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.